The Sun's magnetic field has switched. We have entered the solar maximum, and this could lead to intense changes. The Sun is now sending storms more brutal than ever before, and fears are growing on Earth that a final solar storm could obliterate our satellites. Space visionaries like Elon Musk are preparing for the worst, and NASA is also issuing alerts practically every day about new dangers from the Sun. At no other time have we experienced as many fierce solar storms as over the last couple of months. We are in the year 2024, heading toward the solar maximum. Scientists don't expect the most savage solar activity on the Sun until 2025. Considering that some satellites are already at their limit, the year 2025 could bring some shocks. In the summer of 2024, Elon Musk posted pictures of the stress curves of his Starlink satellites with alarm. The shiny new satellite network had only barely managed to survive the assault from the Sun. But what happens next? Researchers anticipate the outright peak of the current solar cycle for 2025. Among the forecasts is a terrifying storm that could plunge us all into incomprehensible confusion. We have reached the solar maximum. It has never been as bad as it is now. The Sun has reached a degree of activity that is causing severe storms almost every day. NASA has confirmed the inversion of the Sun's magnetic field. These changes are entirely normal in the case of the Sun, but they are occurring within an 11-year cycle instead of 22.5 years. A symptom of these pole shifts is violent turbulence in the lower layers of the Sun. The current solar cycle is called Solar Cycle 25, and it brings especially intense activity on the Sun's surface. On May 1, 2024, an unusually large sunspot region appeared, which was named Active Region 3664. This sunspot grew to multiple times the size of Earth in just a few days. The spot was created due to internal disturbances. The spots appear darker to us than the rest of the Sun. This is due to cooling in the area of the spots. In the lower layer, a kind of pit is made by strong flows, which causes the area to be cooler than the surrounding region. These phenomena are accompanied by intense solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, during which a large amount of charged particles are ejected from the solar surface and blown toward us as strong flows. When the particles interact with Earth's magnetic field, they are gathered at the poles. Earth has an incredible protective mechanism. These work like collection bags for particles trapped in layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Our home planet twirls the particles this way and that a little until they have lost their charge. We see this display as auroras. Typically, the brilliant lights only appear in the polar regions, but this year, everything has changed, and we saw auroras in areas where they don't normally appear. One of the strongest geomagnetic storms in the last 500 years caused amazing auroras that were visible as far away as the Mediterranean, Australia, and Hawaii. NASA is worried about the most powerful solar flare in 7 years. At NASA, specialists are concerned for the safety of the ISS in space and for the safety of various satellites in orbit. Solar storms can severely disrupt technical equipment in space. If significant systems on the ISS fail, it could be tight for the astronauts. Stars of space shuttles or supply transports are also hampered during the storms. If significant satellites also fail, we will no longer have access to special data from space, and our communication systems could collapse. The damage could be enormous. Right now, no one knows how safe NASA's technical facilities truly are. It is an everyday quake and fear at NASA, but also at companies like SpaceX and at other companies and countries that have launched significant satellites into space. In October 2024, the shock came. The Sun delivered an X 9.5 flare. We need to expect even more extreme storms. Geomagnetic storms of level G4 could then be the next issue. Storms of this strength can significantly affect radio communications and trigger the appearance of the aurora borealis at unusual latitudes. Basically, our Sun goes through a cycle every 11 years, first with low activity and then with increased activity. The number of sunspots increases, solar radiation becomes more intense, and the cadence of magnetic field inversion changes. The Sun cycles have been known since the late 18th century. The Carrington event was a solar storm that shocked any average person and prompted an intense investigation into solar activity and its impact on modern civilization on Earth. The violent solar storm of 1859 crippled the still young telegraph network and caused confusion and panic globally. The sky burned for hours. Sparks flew from electrical equipment, and people were scared. The panic went on for weeks. Since then, we humans have been significantly more aware of the dangers the Sun poses to our modern civilization. Animals and plants probably wouldn't mind the flows, but electrical systems can suffer breakdowns. Today, we rely on power 100%. If the global power supply and satellite-based communication networks were to collapse, we could face disaster. the impact on Earth will increase. NASA recently raised the interesting question of whether increased solar activity could affect the Earth's global temperature. We are on the edge of an environmental catastrophe, and obviously, people are wondering whether extreme solar activity could worsen the issues. The increased radiation could hypothetically disturb electrical systems and satellite communications. However, no effects on the environment have been observed to date. The charge of the particles that contact us from the sun isn't dramatic enough to warm the atmosphere. Temperatures and weather conditions would most likely remain unaffected by violent solar storms. The only things impacted are satellites and technical establishments in Earth's orbit, as well as sensitive electrical systems on the planet. Nevertheless, scientists are still not sure whether solar storms of this magnitude could affect nature, animals, or even humans, or whether they could somehow accelerate the greenhouse effect. NASA entrusted the best specialists in the world to address this pressing question. The question remains, how can we protect ourselves? The answer to this can only be that there is not much we can do. We can't stop the emissions from the sun or flares. We can adapt our models for climate change and protect our electrical systems. Our world has changed since 1859. Back then, there was only a nationwide telegraph network and the first generators that produced power. People didn't yet know a power grid as we know it today, lights, refrigerators, or power-dependent ATMs and grocery stores. The famous Carrington event is considered one of the most powerful solar storms ever recorded. Because of the breakdown of the communication system, it took a very long time for the news about the solar storm to spread worldwide. In remote parts of the USA, no one knew what had happened at that time. Mostly, the North American continent was impacted. When sparks flew from the telegraph lines and caused fires, the sky was glowing in remarkable colors. People thought it was some sort of end-of-the-world event. Only the British scientist Richard Carrington had noticed a dark spot had appeared on the sun before the emergency situation. Carrington accurately connected the two and sent the news of his discovery all over the world. If we were hit by a storm on the scale of the Carrington event today, our civilization would be down for a few days without power and working communication systems. Chaotic conditions would break out for days, and no one knows when the day will come when the sun will create such a storm again. It's scary to think that a medium-sized burp from the sun could bring our civilization to the brink of collapse. Solar particle ejections like the one in 1859 are rare. Specialists suspect that there have been severe storms like this throughout Earth's history, but there were no records, or people simply didn't notice much about them since there were no electrical devices. Specialists suspect that some very vivid descriptions of fire angels overhead or religious ideas of a burning sky may be linked to past violent solar storms. Not even 200 years have passed since 1859, and the sun could create such storms again and again. Scientists are making a strong effort to record and predict solar activity patterns. However, specialists warn against making rushed claims. After all, we have only been seriously observing the sun for a very brief period. We have been observing it over time and over centuries, but we have no idea what cycles our star is accustomed to and whether flares of the scale of the Carrington storm follow any sort of rhythm. The marvel of our planet's magnetic field. Do you ever think about how extraordinary it is that our planet has a magnetic field? Probably not. We enjoy the miracle of our home planet and all the luxuries that Earth offers us every day without even considering it. It's only when solar storms or other disasters threaten that we realize how vulnerable we are in this world. Our planet's magnetic field is created inside the Earth. The hot, liquid iron core reacts with the cooler outer layers, and the resulting upwellings in friction generate a magnetic field. This encompasses the entire globe and forms poles at the north and south. There, the barrage of particles from the sun is captured, and normally, this happens as a natural result. We humans can even enjoy the beautiful aurora borealis. But what if our magnetic field were overloaded or completely collapsed? Would have a difficult issue. We can tell you to some extent that much. Not only would the molecule streams hit us harder, but without the magnetic field, the sun would probably obliterate our climate within a few thousand years, so much that life would become inconceivable. Mars has no magnetic field and, accordingly, no atmosphere. In our adjoining star system, Proxima Centauri, the exoplanet Proxima b has raised assumptions that we have found an Earth-like planet outside the nearby planetary group. However, analysts noticed how the star sent such a savage flare to the planet that life and an atmosphere there are very unlikely. Subscribe now. The best videos are on the way.